To create Azure Virtual Network, simply go back to either All Services and check it under Networking. You have the VNet, that's a virtual network. Or you can go here and look for VNet. Here also virtual networks will be there. By default it will be pinned here, so simply click on virtual network. So this is the space where you will have your virtual networks. So let's try to create the first virtual network. So by click on add, so this would actually start a new blade. Within this you have total 5 different tabs, so all these tabs to be filled and finally review and create. So the first thing here would be the basic information, that's your subscription. If you have a multiple subscription, you can choose the required subscription. In my case I have one subscription since I filter as here. If you want, you can go ahead and do your filtering for your subscriptions. So I'm going to create a new resource. Let's see, I want to create here just for the demo lab example. That's my resource group, and here I can give the instance details. So here I can give a specific name. Let's say if I want to create here inside a region called East US, I might be giving here as my VNet in East US, and will be used for maybe my SQL and my web app service. So I'll just give here as a different description so that I know that this specific VNet will be functional, and this is a VNet and this is in East US location for my SQLs and web applications. It will be used. So that's how I can differentiate. Maybe I can give some more hyphens, and then let's go back to the address space. This is where you have the address space. You see here by default it is talking about the address space. That's what we talked here within this specific slide. Like you have the first one is the address space, right? So once you create within this address space, it's gonna ask for the subnets. So you see here this is the address space, and then it's gonna ask for the subnets. So the by default subnet is the default which has created here a specific subnet. If you just give here one, maybe this would ask for the additional subnet name. Let's say subnet, and here you need to give here 10 series.1.0.0/24, and then it would actually creates that specific subnet. So here for the subnet also you go for a proper naming convention so that you know that what you're trying to create. Let's say if I try to create here this the VNet, and inside this I might have to have 2 subnets. So I can give here this is for subnet 1 maybe, and I may have subnet 2, subnet 3, like that. Or I can add here 10.1. specific subnet extension, some name, so that you know what's happening within this subnet name. So you can simply save, and similarly you can create one more subnet if you want. As we talked, within this address space you can have multiple subnets. So that's how it's going to work. And once you have multiple subnets, you can simply create and then review. So if you see here the security also the next point. So if I just click on security, it's going to talk about Bastion host, which is used for the connection for your RDP connection directly from your browser, and DDoS protection. By default it will be enabled for the basic. If you want a standard, it's going to paid, and you need to take that DDoS protection plan. But in our case we're not going to do that. There would be additional lecture how to enable DDoS protection. And coming back to the firewalls, this is where you're gonna actually go ahead and configure Azure firewalls, but we're gonna not configure anything here firewall. So as simple as that, you can give here the address space and the public IP. If you don't have, you can simply create. That would actually create the firewall, but we are not going to do that at this point of time. Later point you can assign all these things. So the first very basic thing would be you first create as your resource group, and then the next point would be the creating your virtual networks, because that's your code layer. That's where you're going to place your resources. So as you place it, you're going to securing with your DDoS, maybe your firewall, or maybe a different protocol communication like NSG configuration, or maybe NLB, application gateway, firewalls. All that comes into the security part. But the basic one would be the creating a virtual network. So once I have done this, I can add the tags. So this is where I can configure my tags. Tags will be very useful in terms of your categorizing your resources when it comes to the when you're trying to view your billing. Let's say I can give here a different name, like maybe this is for my subscription new with the billing information for my HR web application, so that I know that this is what it is trying to do and their value, so that when it comes to the billing, I can drill down and get more information. So I can review, and then if I just click on create, it's going to create the specific subnet. So click on create. That's going to create in a minute. The VNet creation is completed successfully, and you can click here to go to that specific resource. And in future, if you want to use this similar template, that's ARM template, you can download the specific template and you can create your VNet. And if I just go back to my VNet here, virtual networks, I should have now a specific VNet. Within this VNet, when I try to look at here for my NSGs or address space, all that will be here. So you see here, this is my address space and my subnet, which I have created just the one. In future, you want to extend to create one more subnet, you can create here one more subnet, and that would actually create one more subnet. Let's say I want to create maybe subnet 2 example. Simply use this, and if you want to go for natting, you can go for the natting gateway. All that, simply click on OK. That would actually create one more subnet here. And later point, if you want to change your you see here the subnet 2 has created. Later point, you want to change anything with the DDoS protection from basic to standard, you can do that. And firewall configurations, you can do it by adding the firewall. That says your firewall, it's a separate component. And also you can go for the security center specific, any of the alerts that are available to remediate or maybe vulnerable your VNet. Then you would get here all the security alerts. And coming back to the peering, if you have one more VNet, you can go ahead and peer that specific VNet from here, which we are going to do at a later point. And also service points you can configure here, and the private endpoint, all that configurations can be configured from here. And if you want to delete the specific VNet, simple, you can go ahead and delete it like this, or here from here the delete button. But if you try to create any of the virtual machine, for example, let's say I want to create a virtual machine, what would happen is, so I can reuse the specific VNet. Let's say I'm just giving here demo VM. I'm not much concentrating on the VM creation part. And if you see here, I just gave the basic information I filled, but when as soon as I click on the disks, I'm not going to concentrate on that. But when I go to the network, I can choose here now the VNet. If I have any of the VNet, let's say I have my VNet called which we created earlier, that can be used. And I have now here the two subnets that we created, one with the subnet 1, other one would be the subnet 2. So I can place the specific resource within that specific address space. So what would happen is, so we create this VNet and we are creating actually this first virtual machine here. Maybe you can also create your storage account or maybe your SQL server or your web applications, and you can place within that subnets which are associated with your VNet. That's how it's going to useful for your VNet. I'll just cancel this just to demonstrate this for you. Let's try to delete this. How to delete? So I can go ahead here and delete this specific VNet, and it has deleted in fact, so that's good. And any of the resources before you delete it must be have to deassociate, otherwise it will not allow you to delete it because it will associate with some of the virtual networks.